Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. And thank you for joining Shaded's Ramadan series where we're extracting the beautiful lessons from story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Lesson number 23, we're going to talk about spiritual seclusion. And one of the sayings shared by Ibn Atallah rahimullah, which is often overlooked by many in his book of wisdoms, Kitab al-Hikmah, reads, "Nothing benefits the heart more than a spiritual retreat within it, enters a domain of meditation." SubhanAllah, we shy away from being alone sometimes, as this world teaches us to be always occupied, whether it's occupied with the TV or our phone or our iPads or even others, but we want to be mindful to have alone time so we can truly have that me time, but we also want that alone time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when an individual takes to solitude, they not only get more time to themselves, but they also get more time with their Creator. And we need to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is of course different to cutting oneself off from society entirely, which is clearly prohibited in our religion. We're not supposed to just be alone, neglect everything else. We're not supposed to just hide in our homes and not be a part of society. That's actually prohibited in our religion. So it is better to deal with the people than not to deal with them at all. So in a world where we are always connected, be it through social media or various other devices, we seldom get time to think and spend time with ourselves. One of the benefits of disconnecting from time to time is that we get to reflect, and the reflection is what is missing from many of our lives. We have to sit and reflect. Part of our worship as we pray and as we fast and as we give in charity and even as we serve others and help those around us, we need to understand that there's a beautiful worship in just reflection. Reflecting on our day, reflecting on what we do and what we don't do, and the different experiences that we have in life. One of the righteous once said, "Nobody would contemplate for a long time except that they would understand." That we will be wiser when we reflect, when we sit back and think things through. And when they understand, then they become where they know. And when they know, they would act upon that knowledge. And there is, in fact, a strong link between solitude and spirituality, seclusion and reflection, as well as isolation and contemplation in our faith. Yusuf alayhi salam found himself in a situation where he was forced to spend a lot of time in isolation. Being in the prison, he wasn't left with any choice in having that. So he chose to take advantage of it. However, this was in fact a blessing in disguise for him, as it enabled him to spend a lot of time reflecting and contemplating. All of those years in solitude, limiting his interaction with others, prepared him for when he would eventually leave the prison, spending more of this time in worship and less time being distracted, increased his focus and allowed him to plan ahead for the future, putting him in a stronger position than ever before. The idea of seclusion is not a strange one in the Quran. This is something of the many lessons that we learn and extract from the Quran al-Kareem. In fact, it is quite the contrary, where Maryam alayhi salam was known to seclude herself in the chamber of the mosque to focus on her worship, and she would receive provisions from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam was inspired to seclude himself and call out to his Lord in secret, through which he was granted a child in Yahya alayhi salam. Prophet Yunus alayhi salam was able to reflect in the most unusual of places, which was the belly of the whale, after which he turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sincerely repenting, which and was subsequently rescued from his dilemma and was protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the seerah also, seclusion became beloved to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Don't we all know that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ periodically would climb all the way up on Ghar Hira and go and just be alone with himself, reflecting, meditating, praying. And subhanAllah, which led to him receiving revelation at the age of 40. He would regularly go retreat to the cave on the outskirts of Mecca to just simply reflect and to contemplate, sometimes for days on end, and this led to prophethood. The common denominator between all these prophets, peace and blessings be upon them all, is that we should not see spending time by ourselves as a bad thing. Rather, we should consciously prefer this at certain times so we can deeply think and reflect on our own state, devote ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without anyone there to disrupt us. And this is key. Sometimes we can't just stay busying ourselves with others and everything that is encountered with this world. We go from one thing to the next, and if we do, we find ourselves not giving ourselves that proper time with ourselves or with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So not only does seclusion allow us to reflect, but it has many other benefits such as inspiring creativity and enabling us to organize our thoughts and to collect our thoughts. It is a means of muhasabah, which is self-accountability. It's something that we all need. We have to hold ourselves accountable before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala holds us accountable, by which self-awareness is attained, mistakes are rectified, and spirituality is developed. It also becomes easier for one to reflect on the verses of the Quran. When we read the Quran, not in a fast pace, where we read it slowly, we read it with reflection, which is called tadabbur, is that we're taking passage by passage, word for word. We're looking at the order to reflect on it, to learn its valuable lessons, and remind oneself of their purpose in this life. This life is not just meant to go with the flow. This life is not meant to just grow up and go through the different stages of life, whether it's our schooling or our life or our family or our work, and constantly going from one chapter to the next. But we have to remember that this life is short, and this life is the temporary life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to worship Him. So we have to reflect. Ultimately, it is a wholesome experience for us, both mentally and spiritually, as every individual needs some time to themselves every so often to unwind and to recollaborate. Sometimes we end up losing someone or something in our lives and are forced to reflect during such calamities, but before that actually happens, we should take the initiative ourselves. We shouldn't wait for things to pass us by or to go away, then appreciate what we have. That's the importance of reflection. It helps us correct our mistakes, it helps us increase in our blessings, and it helps us build our relationship with ourselves, knowing ourselves, holding ourselves accountable, but also improving our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Prophet Yusuf ﷺ did not expect the turn of events that would follow in his life. However, he was now more prepared than ever before to step up to deal with everything that would come his way through the will of Allah. So utilize time. Do not let time run and you just chasing after it. Capture that time and take advantage of the present moment. And be sure to isolate some time for yourself and for your Creator. Please stay tuned and follow Shaded for more life lessons that we're taking from Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. Jazakumullah kull khair for your time, and I hope that you have a blessed day.